All right, video number 3. And make sure that you're stopping and rewinding if you have questions. You can also email me or talk to me on the Zoom. But we're going to go in and move forward. I know that these are quick. I try and keep my videos really short because I hate long YouTube videos. All right, so the first battles of the Revolutionary War take place in the Boston area. They're Lexington and Concord. There is a supply depot in Concord. There's three things that you need to fight a war: supplies, supplies, supplies. Supplies include ammo, food, potable water. Um, you need a lot of stuff. You need weapons. And there's a supply depot, in this case, a weapons depot in Concord, which is here. So the British troops decide that they're going to go, borrow some supplies from these colonists. And so they march their way to Concord, and they get to Lexington, and they get to a bridge, and there's a stare off. Colonists say, "You're not passing here." The British say, "Just kidding, yeah, we are, we're the British." Um, a skirmish erupts. A skirmish is a very small battle with 10 to 15 people. It's not a full-scale battle. And it's also important to realize that at this time, the British don't think they're in a war. They think that it is a policing operation, that they are just trying to squash this rebellion, and then they're going to get back on with the colonies being the colonies. So the British, they get to this bridge, a skirmish breaks out, and the shot heard around the world is the first shot of the revolution. Nobody knows who fired it. Nobody knows where it came from. Nobody knows why that it fired. But the tensions are rising, and people are getting nervous. And the British, for lack of a better term, they win this battle, and they move on to Concord. When they get to Concord, there are Minutemen waiting for them, and they attack the British at Concord, and they push them all the way back to the Boston area. So the first battle of the American Revolution is at Lexington and Concord, and it's won by the colonists, not the British, by the colonists. The second battle of the American Revolution is the Battle of Bunker Hill. And let's see if I can zoom in here. Bunker Hill and Breeds Hill are these two small hills that overlook the city of Boston. And they're important for two reasons. The main reason is that the Battle of Bunker Hill, it shows the British that this is not going to be an easy war, that this is going to be a long, drawn-out affair. The Battle of Bunker Hill is won by the British. It forces the colonists, and more than force the colonists out of Boston, it really kind of chokes down Boston from a British perspective. And it gives Great Britain the ability to watch or have the upper ground so that they have a good scouting view of Boston. First battle, Lexington and Concord. It's actually two battles, but they're kind of squished into one. It's won by the colonists, and they push the British back to Boston. Battle 2, Bunker Hill. It really entrenches the fact that this is going to be a long war for the British, that it's not going to be easy, number one. And number two, it really chokes down Boston and gives Great Britain a view of what's going on in the city of Boston. All right. The Declaration of Independence is a formal breakup letter written to the King of England by Thomas Jefferson. You guys studied this ad nauseum last year, so I don't really like to talk about it that much. It's heavily influenced by John Locke. Life, liberty, property. All right. You should have your notes up, which I probably should have said the first time. But you need to make sure that you remember these things. The Patriots had home field advantage. They had a higher sense of purpose, and they had George Washington. George Washington is a leader that is very ahead of his time, and in fact, you could erase the word patriot right here and put Confederate, and you would have had the same thing. When we move on to the Civil War leaders, Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davis, they take a lot of what George Washington did during the Revolution and apply it to their war. It didn't go so well, but they really used George Washington. On the other hand, the British, They have the world's best navy. Why would you need a good navy if you're the British? If you said it's an island, then you'd be correct. A well-trained army, they had money, and they had more people. There is no reason why the British should have lost this war. It is literally one of the second David and Goliath moment. Great Britain really should have won this war. All right. So moving on, the next battles. If you're already crying that there's a lot of battles, probably should quit that because just wait until the Civil War when there's like 400 times more battles. George Washington's hanging out here in Long Island, and he fights the British in August of 1776. So this is right after the Declaration of Independence is still probably being delivered to the king, and the British, they push out Washington at the Battle of Long Island. He escapes through New Jersey all the way back into the Philly area, which is actually down here, and he makes camp at Valley Forge. Why do you think the British wanted to hold the city of Boston and the city of New York City? If you said supplies, that is the answer. The British can bring in people, they can bring in ammo, they can bring in food. All of these things can be brought in through the ports in New York and Boston, and that makes them incredibly effective. Now, I actually learned today, because the class told me, that this was December 26th, 1776. And this is actually January 3rd, 1776. So George Washington, on December 26, 1776, some sources say it was Christmas, some sources say December 26th. Anyway, you get the time frame. He decides that he is going to attack the British at Trenton. It is a weapons depot. It is important for supplies. It's on a river. The most important thing that it does is it gives the colonists and the colonial army a sense of victory. It's a moral victory. They sneak up on the Hessians. Hessians were Germans. It was Christmas. They were intoxicated. And they were drunk. And he sneaks up on them in the middle of the night, and it's just, for lack of a better term, a bloodbath. His guys come in. They take over Trenton. They get real cocky. They get real full of themselves, and they move on to Princeton. And they take over both of these ports, and they do it really quickly. And when they do it really quickly, it kind of starts to swing momentum in the way of the colonies. And that's really why Trenton and Princeton are important. I mean, yeah, it's fun that the soldiers were drunk, but it's more, and the ports, not the ports, having control of the rivers is important for supplies, but it really gives the colonists a W, which they desperately need. All right, that's it for video number 3. I'm probably going to stop now, so I might have new clothes on, new shirt next time you see me.